Jai Jhulelal to all our audience worldwide, and welcome to everyone. I would like to introduce our guest of honor today, Dr. Rakesh Patkar. He is an oncopathologist, a lab director, and head of Department of Histopathology in several hospitals. He has multiple degrees and publications to his credit and is actively involved in cancer research and diagnosis. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Shilpa Mishra. She is an experienced consultant pathologist, and she was a lecturer for many years in Grant Medical College as well as the Sir JJ School, JJ Hospital, group of hospitals. She is currently also the director of Microcraft. It is her own company. I would like to invite our dear Dada, Dayal Harjani, to welcome the guests as well. Hari Om, Dada. Sorry, I don't know. Dada, are you there? So today, anyway, as you all know, there will be a major discussion on cancer. And all the common questions that we have will be answered by Dr. Patkar in conversation with Dr. Shilpa. We're looking forward to being enlightened on this disease which affects most families nowadays. Hari Om, Dada. Welcome.
There we are. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Can we get Dr. Rakesh and Shilpa on the screen, please? Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Jai Shri Krishna. I would like to extend a psychic welcome to you, Dr. Rakesh, today, which really means is that normally I have this book from where I draw all the inspiration, and my dohas are from here. But normally I pick up the doha at random. So what I'll ask you to do is you close your eyes and tell me a number, page number. I'll open the page number, and that will be your psychic welcome. And whatever the message comes, I'll read out to you and the entire viewers, and that will be the message for the day to start up. So I'll wait for your number.
Number 20.
Number 20?
20.
20, 20.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? I opened 20 by itself. It says, चली जो पुतली लौन की, चली जो पुतली लौन की, था सिंधु का लेन, आप ही गली पानी भाई, उल्टी कहे जो बैन. Now this is difficult, it's in Oriya language, but I've translated this into English, which says, a doll of salt entered the sea. A doll of salt entered the sea in depth to ascertain an account, to understand. But instead it melted in water saline, who will return now to recount. So this is a very deep meaning that God is an ocean of consciousness. And as a human being, our consciousness is limited in scale. So when we try to fathom the depth of God, when we endeavor to attain God realization, there is no one to report the depth as we ourselves merge into the sea of cosmic consciousness. So this is the deep meaning of this particular doha. I hope you all followed it.
Yes.
Once you realize God, then who is there to report? So anyway, that is your psychic welcome for today and for so before we start and we give the uh, responsibility to Dr. Shilpa to ask you questions on breast cancer. I would like to ask you something very simple. Can you give us an account or definition of cancer in layman's term? Dr. Rakesh, over to
Uh,
you.
yes. See, basically, our body has different parts which are made up of things called cells. Cells are the building blocks of our body. For example, the cells in the eye decide that it will become an eye. The cells of the nose decide it will become a nose. Just like the cells of our organs, they have a fixed function. And whenever cells are damaged, they either repair themselves or they die, and then new cells come and replace those old cells. Cancer is basically a group of cells which do not listen to the rest of the body. They follow their own signals, they grow without control, without restraint, and they eat up the nutrition of the entire body, and they refuse to listen to the signals from the rest of the body that please stop, you're not supposed to do this. And that completely destroys the body. It throws the body off balance. It throws the nutritional system of the body off balance. It starves your body because the cancer just wants to grow. It doesn't care about the body surviving, and eventually it kills the body, and even it does kill itself in the process. So there is no rational mind to it. It's just a very very dangerous thing which destroys everything.
So
But
you
touching
say
wood,
that these cells don't listen to the signals of the body, which means they're breakaway cells, like they're revolutionary cells.
they are, yes.
Why
But
do
now
they
we have
happen? Why do they become like that?
that could be because all of us have a genetic code, right? At
Hmm.
birth, we all have a genetic code. Now, that is the genetic code in every cell of your body may be the same, but it is expressed differently. For example, the genetic code in your skin will decide that it is skin. The genetic code in your liver will decide it's a liver cell, right? In cancer, the genetic code gets mutated, so therefore it starts misbehaving. It may express different proteins, it may grow in different ways, it may send signals to the rest of the organs to stop functioning or to give it more nutrients. So it tends to just grab control like a dictator who has just come into power, basically.
So then it becomes a tumor in some time, is it?
In
These
some time it becomes a tumor, and every cell of that tumor also decides to behave very differently. Some of them decide we are going to be resistant to chemo, some of them decide we are going to be aggressive, some of them decide we want to live very long, so we'll just stay in hiding and we'll let everyone ignore us, and when everything else goes on, then we'll grow.
so you're saying that the cells are very intelligent by themselves.
Extremely intelligent. They adapt and they counter adapt to whatever treatment we give.
So how would you how does the cell either become malignant or non-malignant? How does that happen then? Are
Basically,
all
damage accumulates over a span of time. Usually whenever a cell gets, like, all of us know that radiation can cause cancer, right? I think that's a fact. We all know that radiation exposure causes cancer. Now why it does is those cells are damaged, but they don't either heal or they don't die. If a cell dies, it doesn't become cancerous. If it heals, it doesn't become cancerous. So cancer occurs when there is damage to the cell, but the healing process isn't perfect, it's imperfect. So too many DNA errors accumulate, and the cell sort of loses itself, loses its purpose.
okay? So are there any common symptoms? Because I was reading going through the Google, and they say there are 100 types of cancer.
I would say
But
there are lines, if not
so are
codes.
there any common symptoms
But yeah,
for?
the common symptoms would depend on the location of the cancer. For example, if it's a skin or oral cavity, let's look at the commonest cancer in India, or cancer of the oral cavity. So the
Of
symptom
what?
would be a mass, the oral cavity for smokers, tobacco
Oral
smokers.
cavity.
Yeah. So for that, for example, a mass, a simple mass, a lump, or a bleeding lump, or an ulcer which doesn't heal and just bleeds. And these symptoms can last for many, many years. People just don't take treatment for them. I don't know why. And it's curable at that stage.
So how many uh, types of cancer are very destructive? Are there
Uh,
4 or 5 which are very destructive in nature and which we should be on the lookout for?
there are some cancers basically which resemble, when we look at a cancer under the microscope. for example, we can sometimes make out the origin of the cancer, whether it has come from the liver, how much it resembles a normal liver. For example, a liver cancer resembling a normal liver would be called a well differentiated liver cancer, right? So the cancers which are poorly differentiated, which don't resemble any normal organ, they misbehave completely. They are the more aggressive ones. Similarly, some forms of blood cancers are very aggressive. Some forms of brain cancers are very aggressive, but it really depends on the specific cancer type. Like in brain cancers, you have some which are completely indolent, completely harmless, and you have some cancers which are very aggressive. Some cancers which may not grow very fast, but they're located in places so deep in the body that even if they grow outward slightly, they'll enter the nerves and they'll enter all your blood vessels. So it really depends on the location. But as such, growth speed is not that important in cancers. Just picking it up and making sure you can kill most of it is what is more important. If they're located in a site which is difficult to operate, that is scarier.
But I have heard that certain cancerous cells jump from one place to the other under what you call metastasis or something like that, right?
And yes, that is usually how they kill. Basically, they jump from one place to
So,
another.
how does that happen? I mean, and why does it happen? Why, like lung cancer, it goes down to the prostate or something to that effect. How can they jump so far?
So normally, the cells in the body have adhesions in them. There are many substances in the which the cells express which make them adherent to each other. Like how your skin is in, even if you scratch your skin, most of it is still adherent. But the cancer cells tend to lose those adherence molecules, because of which they tend to spread and they become independent and they go where they wish, and where they go and they land, they set up base there. They send signals that we need blood vessels, we need nutrients, we need more of malignant cells, and they start establishing a field called a field effect of DNA damage all around it, and more cells around it become cancerous. So that's what they do. It's like a war. They establish bases elsewhere.
So, I'll be more curious to know that why they become revolutionary or they don't listen to the signals of the normal body.
Just
Is
like
there
some
any
I have an idea.
does it have any psychosomatic reason or any physical reasons or
No, that is a gene expression. It's called a metastatic signature. It's a gene. That if that expression occurs in the tumor, depending on how much it's like a revolutionary having an idea. The cancer cells have their ideas. If the idea is something called a metastatic signature, then that spreads. See, cancer is designed to kill. So basically, what it does is it spreads. But that spread, cancer which spread, may be sensitive to chemotherapy too. You don't know. Some cancers don't spread, but they become resistant to chemotherapy. So they all adapt in their own ways. The ones which decide to migrate, migrate. The ones which decide to stay and say, I'm going to become resistant to chemo, they become resistant to chemo. That's why it's important to catch them before they behave like this and remove as much of it as we can, if not everything.
I'll just leave you now with one thought. I was listening to Dr. Hegre. He's a cardiologist and Padam Shri, awardee also. And he says that we have 80 trillion cells in our body and they all love each other and they are all fond of each other.
Absolutely.
But because of our wrong thinking, and if we hate somebody or we fear something, that these cells become what you call disgrunted by themselves and by this thought process. And then they start getting far away from each other and start retaliating in this way by not listening to the signals. So he boils down to say that we must be in love with ourselves and love the whole world and not hate anybody because the hatred and fear and all these negative thoughts cause cancer as one of the contributing factors besides nutrition and environment, etc. So I'll leave that thought with you for you to contemplate on. And now we'll request Dr. Shilpa Misra to grill you on the breast cancer subjects. Over to you, Shilpa. God bless.
Good evening, everyone. So, my first question to Dr. Rakesh is breast cancer common in India? And is it only common in females? Or does it affect males too?
Okay, thank you for the question. Breast cancer is a common cancer in general, and in India, it's commoner than in many other countries. I'd say around 1 in 30 women have a chance of getting it, or maybe 30 women per 1 lakh in some places is the incidence. And it's not seen only in women. We see a lot of cases of, at least I get a lot of cases of male breast cancers as well. So it's a very common cancer. It's a familial cancer. It can be genetic, and it has a variety of well-defined causes, and it is preventable and curable as well.
So my next question is it preventable? How to prevent it? And why does it occur?
Okay, so why it occurs and how to prevent it. Now, there will be some things in common and some places where we will diverge. Let's stick to the first point, where why it occurs, and therefore how we can prevent it. The commonest cause which we've seen now of increasing incidence is because of obesity. Obesity affects the hormonal levels of the body. A terrible diet, excessive fats in the diet, especially trans fats in the diet, they do cause a lot of DNA damage. Then women who take hormones for prolonged periods of time without understanding how much time to take off, it's always a risk for that. Then women who, for example, don't breastfeed. For example, breastfeeding is quite protective in cancer. But then there are social factors and a lot of things which you can't alter. Then family history plays a very big role in breast cancer, very very big role. If you have a family history like Angelina Jolie, she had a gene mutation which would have led her to have cancer with an incidence of 100%. She would have had it. So she removed her breasts. Angelina Jolie, just imagine being a celebrity, she removed both her breasts to prevent it from happening. So sometimes it's inevitable if you have a family history, and we have gene testing which we do in our lab for it. If it's inevitable, you have no other option but you have to remove the breast or follow up. Exercise, lack of exercise plays a major role. Exercise and low body fat is preventive in breast cancer. If women get very active, they actively exercise. That's why in the olden days we wouldn't find it that much among these in the rural population. We wouldn't find that much breast cancer at all, but now we find it in a very high incidence. Finally, yeah, like we said, dietary factors, food preservatives, all of these play a role as well. But now we believe that genetics play a majority of the role. So we do a lot of gene panels because in India it's becoming so common, and the breast cancer is related to ovarian cancer also. So if a woman has a history of some ovarian cancer in the family, it's very likely her sisters may get breast cancer as well. And even in fact, the chance of breast cancer in the female has been correlated with the chance of prostate cancer in the male members of the family as well, or pancreatic cancers also. So all of these cancers come under a certain cluster. So if we take a family history and we find out someone has passed away at a certain age because of certain cancers, there is a degree of suspicion, then we advise some things. It could be testing, genetic testing, which we do, or it could be screening. Now coming to prevention, screening is the best way for prevention. So what we do is basically we advise regular mammograms, examination, breast self examination of the breast, because a breast cancer will always present as either as a breast lump or as some sort of a nipple discharge in the early stages, and that is where it can be cured completely. So regular, and there is a technique for breast self examination as well. So that can be taught to you by your doctor. So while taking a shower or something, you can always examine both breasts, examine your armpit for any lump. And finally, if you do find a lump, then there is a procedure called FNAC. It just takes a few minutes to do, and you get the results the same day, which can tell you what that lesion is, and then you can just remove it. And if it's cancer at that stage, it's completely cured. So regular screening, regular follow-up is very important. But if you have a strong family history, you have to get genetic testing done.
So what role do you play in diagnosis and prevention and treatment of cancer?
Going.
What role I play? See, basically, I am a oncopathologist. So what I do is I get biopsies, which means that the doctors find a lump. Like we said, now a woman has gone, she has done breast self-examination very sincerely, and she has noticed a lump while showering. So she goes to the doctor and says that I'm pretty certain I did not have this lump a month ago. And now I felt it was maybe lumpy, but now I'm quite certain it's a lump. So then the doctor takes a piece of the lump. First, he takes a clinical history. Do you have a history of breast cancer? Do you have any other symptoms? And woman will say yes or no, depending on the scenario. Then that lump, either the entire lump or a piece of the lump, is sent to me, and I look at it in the microscope. Now, there, my first thing which I convey to the doctor, is it cancer or is it not a cancer? If it's not a cancer, no issues. The second thing is it somewhere in the middle? For example, there are many lesions which we see called DCIS. So there are many, many lesions which we report, which can tell us that this woman will get cancer in the next 10 years. Right now it's not a cancer, but she will get it in 10 years, and she may get it in the other breast too. So she may need enhanced screening, more rapid screening, or a genetic test. Finally, if it is an actual cancer, then the type of the cancer, the subtype of the cancer, and finally how to treat the cancer. So we check. Breast cancer is very hormonally sensitive, so we do testing to see if it has receptors for hormones. If it does, then we give medicines to block those receptors, and the cancer shrivels away and dies. Now, if it doesn't have those receptors, then we again genetically sequence the cancer, and we find out where the mutations occur, and then we give targeted therapy to kill those mutations and kill that cancer completely. So my role is from diagnosis to management of that case, and then when they come for follow-up, I keep all the records with me, so I know the family history. I know how that cancer behaved before and how it may behave now. So we treat it very aggressively.
Shilpa, can I interrupt? Yeah, I want to know, you mentioned about family history, but our parents never conducted any test or were aware of their cancer cells or whatever. So, how do we figure this out? We have no record of genetic history firm. We don't have a emphatic genetic history. So then what?
Till 10 years ago, there was no radiology, there were no investigations. So maybe the cases were not diagnosed only.
Yeah, so they were not diagnosed. So
Yeah.
we can never ascertain our history, right?
We cannot calculate the exact incidence of the cancers before 1950s or 60s because of lack of radiological investigation and histopathological investigations.
Yeah, so in that case, people like in our age, we cannot ascertain the family history, right? Because our parents never went through any tests.
No, we can do the genetic test. We can identify the culprit gene, and then we can know that we can get cancer or if our daughters can get cancers.
When you say family history, I would say past, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, I don't know my parents' historical past on whether they had cancer or not, or what
But if
stage
you have,
until.
suppose, if you have an autosomal dominant mutation, then you can assume that your parents and grandparents also had it,
Hmm.
like, in theory.
I just need to interrupt. On the basis of your current genome, also we can make out whether it's come from your parents, whether it will be passed on to the children, or whether it will stay in your generation. So we can, even if we don't have anything available with your current genome itself, we can make out everything. Tech has advanced that much.
So you have tests where you can ascertain that, is it?
Yeah, not only breast cancer, for thousands of cancers.
Okay. Go ahead, Shilpa. Continue.
So my next question is, what are the recent advances in diagnosis of breast cancer?
Okay, so your question was the recent advances in diagnosis of breast cancer. Well, most recent advances are the number one in the diagnosis in microscopy, something called immunohistochemistry, which lets us know if the cancer cells are susceptible to hormonal blockage. So we block hormones, and then the cancer shrivels, shrinks. Even the cancer which has spread to different parts of the body may just die because it's not getting the hormones it needs to survive. The second biggest advance is genetic testing of the cancers. Now we talked about genetic testing, so it's of two types. You can test the person, or you can test the cancer. Both have a different genome. So you can do the genetic testing of the cancer to see which mutations it has, and then give medicines to attack those mutations as well. And there is something called programmed death ligand. If the cancer cells express that, then you can give them medicines which send them a signal to commit suicide, and they actually commit suicide. So there are advances in that, yeah, a lot of advances.
Okay, so it's my
Should I
turn.
ask more questions?
Please go ahead. If you have some more, then most welcome. Otherwise, I will ask.
You can go ahead.
Okay. So, doctor, I would like to ask you that can we survive cancer? What is what is the chance? The what are the
So
chances that?
basically, if see, cancer is now a curable disease, just like all other diseases are. At one time, tuberculosis people didn't survive because people who got tuberculosis, there were no medicines available. The medicines were slow. People were locked away in sanatoriums. People who had mental illnesses, for example, they were in mental hospitals, incurable. Now they have jobs. They take medicines. The hallucinations and all are gone. So cancer now is a curable disease. We have to accept that at first. But there are certain cancers which are not curable, which are very, because they're located like the pancreatic cancer. It is located so deep in the body, and it doesn't cause any symptoms. And by the time it has spread to the liver, it has spread into the nerves. It's gone everywhere. So some cancers you can't do much, but for most of the cancers and almost all, you can go for a complete cure. That's what I believe in. Like blood cancers, at one time, there was one blood cancer called CML, a form of leukemia, which was incurable. It cost lakhs to crores to cure it. And one scientist discovered that there was one mutation, and if you give one small medicine, it costs like maybe 1 rupee per pill. You take it in a day, it blocks that mutation, and the cancer cell just dies. And that worked. He got a Nobel Prize, and that cancer is now completely curable. So we are advancing leaps and bounds. And but the best way to prevent cancer in this today's topic, breast cancer, would be regular self-examination, regular screening, and a very good lifestyle. A very good lifestyle, reducing the bad fat in the diet, having good body fat level, regular exercise, meditation, of course, your own spiritual advancements, everything. All these issues are very important. They will prevent cancer. And there are some things like genetics. If you have, then you have to get tested for it. There you have to get tested for it.
So one is that cancer, by and large, is preventable. I mean, is curable.
It's curable, yes.
Also, it depends on the early stage or late stage, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And the location of the cancer. Now, see, oral cancer, for example, for people who smoke a lot, they have actually put photographs on those cartons. They've shown that there is oral cancer. People still smoke, and they actually get these masses in their mouth. They live with them for 10 to 15 years. And then they come to us for treatment. So, what have they been doing? It's been so obvious. It's in your face, it's on the carton too. So, sometimes you can't explain to people. But there are some people who are very well educated, they notice a small thing, and accordingly they come to us. Now, people in foreign countries who are very fair skinned, they have a high chance of skin cancer called melanoma. In India, melanoma is not that common. So for them, we advise looking at their whole body once, seeing wherever they have moles, and seeing if there is any change in the mole suddenly. Because that change in the mole could be that mole turning into a melanoma. But in Indians, it's not that relevant. So depending on the ethnicity, like some Jews have a very high incidence of some speech cancers. So depending on the ethnicity, the background, everything, we give advice. In India, oral cavity, breast cancer, cervical cancer, they're dangerous. But luckily, all of them are curable and preventable, and you can screen for them.
Thank you so much. My second question, actually, you have answered it kind of, is that how do I keep my family and my loved ones away or away from cancer or free of cancer?
Well, being
So,
self-aware of your own health, and see, firstly, having like a lot of fruits and vegetables, they have antioxidants. A lot of people market antioxidant tablets. That makes no sense because we were the people who used turmeric. We were the people who used saffron, and saffron and turmeric have, even Aula. It has all these things. They have the highest antioxidant concentrations you can possibly imagine. So even taking supplements also, you can take some supplements like vitamin D is needed. Okay, iron may be needed, but otherwise having a very healthy diet with a good amount of antioxidants, fruits, vegetables of different colors, because those different colors have different antioxidants in them, and exercising regularly, meditation, and being aware. If you're feeling weak, you feel that is something wrong, then you can discuss and show a doctor. If you have no family history, then just having a very good lifestyle is the best thing you can do.
so you would recommend having organic everything, fruits, vegetables. Does that also?
Yes, but avoiding processed food, because in processing they put a lot of chemicals which actually can cause cancer. So avoiding processed food, good homemade food, and exercise. Because what exercise does is exercise makes your body go into a state of increased turnover. So the cells which are semi-damaged, instead of becoming cancerous, they just die off. they get shed. The body is being told, you're exercising, you need to be young, you need to be strong. There's no time for all this. So the weak cells, they just die off, and the fit cells stay.
That's very interesting to know that exercise has such a important
Yes,
effect. I
One
knew that
more
sugar.
thing I would like to add, that eating fruits and vegetables is very good as antioxidants. But the problem is our farmers, they add a lot of pesticides in that. So you have to wash them very carefully and very nicely just to wash away the pesticides, because pesticides can also cause cancer.
So that's why I asked whether organic foods, because
Yeah.
those don't have. It's probably safer.
definitely. Any residue, if it's labeled residue free, then that's great.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. Bao, you would like to.
Are you through with all your questions, Urvashi?
I'm through
You
with
don't.
my questions.
You can ask more if you want to.
I g-
We have plenty of time.
okay, okay.
The doctor is answering to the point, and
Yes.
he's very, on the spot. So we can ask more questions in that case.
So I do have a question on sugar. I know that those who are, who are suffering from cancer, they're asked to stop eating sugar right away the moment they are diagnosed with cancer. So would it be that if I don't eat sugar at all, I may not get cancer? Could that be?
It's not like that. Sugar is a source of fuel for the body, but rather than sugar, let's look at it from the perspective of carbohydrates. So if you eat food which has a healthy carbohydrate content, gives you a stable spike in your blood. If you're a non-diabetic, if you're a diabetic, you have to take your medicines, and you
Of
can still
course.
have a healthy diet. And if you maintain a proper spike, you will not have those cravings, and you can have like carbohydrates and something. I don't think by sugar you meant literally spoons of sugar.
I know, but see, they don't have anything with like cake, pastries, biscuits, Indian sweets, mithai, anything with white sugar, they are supposed to avoid completely.
uh,
So,
we tell people to avoid, but if it's not possible to avoid, having it in very little quantity just to keep yourself happy, we can have a little bit, and but exercise to compensate for it, and make sure that you don't get a big sugar spike because of it, and have a balanced diet.
right, right.
But sugar does
Well,
weaken immunity. But people in the olden days used to have so much sugar, but they needed it. They burned it out.
yeah,
We don't burn it
exactly.
out. That's the problem. We don't use it.
And they had so much fried food as well. They had samosa, they had puri, and
But
our
they would burn
Sindhis
it
would have
off.
koki. Sorry,
They would burn it off. They would
they were.
utilize it as fuel. Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I don't think they reused the oil very much. Like these days, vendors are reusing the oil, the same oil they keep on using for like multiple times.
That's dangerous. Yeah, that has a
That's the
trans fat.
main culprit.
Trans fat is bad for everything. The studies have shown it causes every possible disease. You can just list it.
So moral of the story is eat at home.
Eat
Eat
it.
at home. Really.
Anything else you have to ask?
Dr. Shilpa had a couple more questions, I
Okay, let
think.
me ask till you think of something different. Shilpa, you have any questions to ask? Dr. Rakesh
No.
or no? You're through. So you mentioned about exercise, Dr. Rakesh. So when person is going through chemotherapy, he or she weakens his immunity and his ability to exercise. So what do you have to tell them?
Now that would depend on what kind of chemotherapy we're talking about, how intense it is, and the overall functional status of the patient. If that patient is taking chemotherapy but is so critical that they can't even move, then obviously exercise is out of the question. But even if you notice, like in chemotherapy rooms and all of that, they encourage these patients to interact with each other. They encourage they keep nurses who are very positive, radiate positive energy. You can walk around the room, you can talk with each other, crack jokes, create positive energy, and even walking around is a form of exercise, and it really depends. Now see, abroad they do take physiotherapy too, because some form of exercise does help. If you're on chemo, but you can still do some light form of exercise to keep yourself mobile and active, and nothing like it. Because if you're just bedridden, even if you're on chemo or not on chemo, if you're just bedridden for 1 month, you can make out you'll lose your muscle and you'll find it difficult to do your activities. So every case has to be individualized. We can't say. It really depends on the cancer also. Like if he has a cancer of the bones and that he can't walk at all, then I wouldn't recommend exercise, obviously.
But for other type of cancer, what would be the duration of the exercise that one should do? Like half an hour, 40 minutes, or like or 1 hour? What do you recommend?
As long as it is not causing any kind of damage, it is not affecting the patient is obviously going to be in the ward. See, sometimes the patients come for chemo at a frequency, then they go back home. They just come for chemo. So at that time, that person at home can do cycling, they can do some gymming, no issues like that. If their bone density is decent, I mean, it will help them maintain good bone density. So it really depends. But if the person is a hospitalized patient who can't do any activity whatsoever, then we can't expect. But then they can do breathing exercises, all of those kind of things, something or the other. Just active recovery in whatever way possible, under the advice of the doctor. I wouldn't obviously advise a person who's taking chemo to go and lift heavy weights in the gym. They have already weakened their bones, and chemo has weakened their muscles, bone. They may have tendon injuries, they may have bone fractures. Who knows,
So how successful has chemotherapy been since it started? When did chemotherapy start actually? 40,
Actually,
50 years ago?
even before that, there were more primitive drugs which they gave, which were just poisons, because chemotherapy started as giving some forms of poisons. They believe that the cancer cells, because they used to eat more nutrients from the body than the normal cells, they would eat more poison too. So you would harm everything, but you would harm the cancer cells more. So chemo
Hmm.
initially had a very bad reputation because it was poison, but the chemotherapy agents now are not like that. That is the first thing. And what was the question again? I got lost. I'm
No,
sorry.
no. What is the success rate of chemotherapy now?
Okay, so now chemotherapy. Let us look at it from a point of view of this chemotherapy. Let's forget about the what idea we have of conventional chemotherapy. The one where a person becomes bald, a person becomes shriveled, weak. That's not chemotherapy now anymore. Now chemotherapy has become one with targeted therapy. So we target the cancer specifically rather than the rest of the body. So now there have been many cures. So I can say that it can lead to cures if combined with radiotherapy, surgery, all three together in a certain way. Um, and if the cancer has spread everywhere, then chemotherapy can improve your quality of life. Like it can prevent, like for example, if your bile is not being drained from your liver because of a cancer of the pancreas blocking it or some cancer blocking it, then chemotherapy and then putting in a duct or something may allow the bile to drain and the person will get relief. So it can improve your quality of life also towards the end. But otherwise, we go for a cure, of course. If no cure, it will improve your quality of life, definitely. And if the patient is not fit for chemo, doctors don't give chemo anymore. We look at our performance scores, the performance scores of the patient overall. We don't want to give them a worse quality of life.
But before, we used to witness that people who were under chemotherapy would become bald and lose their facial features and things like that.
Yeah, and
Does it happen
now
still?
corporate stress causes that more.
No more, right? So
Yeah, corporate stress
it doesn't
causes that
happen
more
that
now.
anymore, right?
No, chemo basically does the cells which rapidly turn over, like the hair cells, they have a rapid turnover. So it attacks those cells. Cancer cells also have a rapid turnover. The cells which multiply very fast, they get damaged by chemo more. That's why infertility, hair loss, skin aging, that happens with chemo. Yeah, but then eventually after some time, there are ways to mitigate the effects of that too. Now we have ways to mitigate those effects.
So is there any alternative to chemotherapy? Chemotherapy.
It depends on the tumor. Some tumors you can just surgically remove completely. Radiotherapy is there. Now we have something called confocal radiotherapy where you concentrate the beam at the tumor rather than just giving it broadly. So because if you give it broadly, you can cause cancer elsewhere then. And
Hmm.
targeted therapy where we do genetic testing of the tumor and we give targeted therapy and or minimum chemotherapy, like minimum in the combination of all of this and minimum.
So which would you recommend now? What kind of therapy would you recommend
For
in
what?
today's time?
In today's time, every tumor has to have a customized approach, and depending on how what the patient wants to. Like some breast cancers can be fine. Like a doctor can say, I want to do surgery. A doctor can say, I want to do chemo. A doctor can say, I want to do a combination of both. All of it is valid. So it depends on what the patient wants, what suits them, and how much of a risk they're willing to take. If someone says, look, I don't mind to do this surgery, I don't want the cancer coming back ever. And one patient is like, okay, I don't mind the 2% risk, but keep the breast properly. Don't worry. I'll come regularly, I'll follow up. So it depends.
Is surgery recommended or what?
Cancer,
I
yeah.
always get scared. I mean, to recommend. I mean, one should not play around with God's gift. It's my opinion.
Yeah, so the God's gift is our body. Cancer is misbehaving. No?
But surgery is something that should be avoided, right?
No, you're just removing the dead. You're removing the part which is going to is anyway dead. It's not be a part of your body anymore. It's misbehaving. It's not following your genetic code. Just like we shed off our hair, we shed off our skin so that new skin and new hair can come. The surgery is removing that part, but then the rest of the breast tissue, the breast bed, it heals. When we remove the part of the breast tumor, nowadays immediately we give implants back, and it looks perfect. You can't even make out. Some of the surgeries barely have any scar. You can't even make out the woman has had breast surgery. Actresses have done it. Angelina Jolie has done it. So I don't think it's unnatural. I think we are using the knowledge God has given us, the advances in science, everything, to fight a disease in unison as a team.
So the question here that comes to my mind now is that I understand that breast cancer is very rampant in India.
Very
Along
rampant.
with the prostate cancer also is rampant.
Prostate cancer, this is a funny statistic. 80% of people above age of 80 will have prostate cancer. But the top thing, yeah,
Please say again
80%,
slowly.
yeah,
Let me
80%,
understand.
around 80% of males above the age of 80 will have prostate cancer. But the prostate cancer will often be that slow growing that it will not affect them at all. And as you become older, it also grows slower. So prostate cancer is something which is exceedingly common. The more aggressive ones of prostate cancer we treat. So, but it is exceedingly common. But the good news is PSA levels and digital rectal examination can really protect you from most of those prostate cancers. So if you do a regular PSA or digital rectal examination, that suffices.
So how often one should have these prostate for men, especially, to beware or of catching prostate problems? What should
Once
they
you
do? What is your advice to them?
For male prostate cancer, I think for prostate cancer we can have a separate discussion. It'll be in great detail.
Say that
But
again.
I would say that a baseline PSA level and monitoring that PSA level and doing something called PSA velocity regularly and visiting a doctor, taking a family history would be important. And if the patient has symptoms, then they should be looked into why the symptoms are there. But like I said, prostate cancers is exceedingly common, and very often now, I mean, sometimes people treat it, sometimes people just give some very low dose medicines for it, and nothing really happens. I mean, people live till 100 or 100.
Prostate cancer is more curable than the rest, right? Or what?
Not all, or not all. Like I said, there are cancers can be well differentiated. There are some which can be poorly differentiated. If your prostate cancer is poorly differentiated, it's not very hormonally responsive, it's spread to your spine, bones, brain, then there's nothing you can do about it.
So is breast cancer mortal, fatal, or it not so fatal? I mean, what's the
Depending on
mortality rate?
no, that is too variable. The statistics are too variable because a lot of breast cancer cases in our rural areas have not been reported. Women just die. They ignore the lump and they just die, or they can't afford treatment. But it depends on the type of breast cancer. There are some breast cancers which are not responsive to hormones, so they are just misbehaving on their own without hormones. So you can't block hormones. If they were because of hormones, you could have blocked hormones and then killed the cancer. So we call them triple negative. So triple negative cancers are very dangerous. Then there are some cancers which are anaplastic, poorly differentiated. There are some subtypes. They are very dangerous cancers. But something like a lobular cancer or something, they have a good prognosis. So it really depends on the individual cancer, to be honest. It can be harmless to completely lethal. And that we can make out on the microscope. That comes on a report. That's what I do actually professionally.
So there is no common guidance to anyone. It has to be on a case-to-case basis.
It has to be on a case-to-case basis, but the prevention is, see, even if it's a very bad cancer, but if you pick it up at 1 centimeter, you can remove it. It will not come back then. So that's the thing. So the main thing is prevention, and we have to do the best which we can. See, sometimes in life there are some cancers which even Dr. Shilpa will tell you, like certain forms of breast cancers, like maybe gallbladder cancer, where you can't do anything. No matter what the lifestyle you live, no matter how healthy you are just doomed if you have it. So
Say that again about gallbladder, because recently we had a problem of in Hong Kong, somebody getting gallbladder. Can you talk more about this?
yeah, gallbladder cancer, if it's picked up by accident, like the person has a stone and you remove the gallbladder and you see, oh, there is a cancer there, then there is a chance. But if it spreads to the liver, then there is no chance there. So there are these no chance cancers also, where there is no hope. That is because their location is such that they spread into the blood, and that blood is connected to everywhere, every road.
So that means gallbladder is very dangerous
And
to have,
most of the
because
cases
it's
which we have
proximity
seen,
to.
it is already stuck to liver.
Yeah, the gallbladder stuck to the liver. So if
In
it's
most
a
of the
bad,
cases,
very bad.
we have seen it is already stuck to liver and the surrounding area. So it's quite aggressive.
And then there is a cancer in the brain, like a glioblastoma multiforme, we call it. So if that cancer occurs, that means that every cell in your brain has already been mutated. So even if you remove it, it will come back somewhere else. It's a no hope cancer. So there are some which are no hope. But we will have advances in them now. We are seeing them. I'm part of ASCO, the American Society of Clinical Oncology, and we are seeing advances in them now. In the next 15 years, maybe all cancers will perhaps be completely curable in any stage.
So in that case,
Brain cancers are still going to be very difficult, but
brain cancer, what? Say that again.
brain cancers, like even if there are advances, it is very difficult to treat a brain cancer. Even if we are able to treat it, the quality of life of the patient will be bad.
Because you have to remove a part of the brain. Now you may remove a part of the brain for language, for
Yeah.
some memories, it may be like that. Some function may be lost, but the brain does adapt. Dr. Shilpa, the brain does adapt. People have gotten the language skills back. They've gotten the brain does adapt. It's remarkable. I've seen miracles happen.
So then, what are the most common cancers in India prevalent today?
The common cancers in India, which are actually prevalent, can be prevented. I don't know why they're not prevented and are curable. Are oral cancer, cervical cancer, for which pap screening is an absolute must, which we have to talk about because that will save millions of lives. Pap screening. Then breast cancer. Then now again, because we have less fiber and we are following a Western lifestyle diet, colorectal cancers are becoming very common.
Which one?
Rectal cancer, colon,
Colorectal, okay.
intestine. Then lung cancers are becoming very common now. Again, smoking, pollution, all those things.
So how does one? So these five are very common in India today.
Yes, yes. But in
So
general,
what is the
cancer is common.
mortality rate there? People who get it, how any percentage of mortalities?
No, it will depend on the
Which is more
subtype of.
dangerous than the rest?
No, see, now that will depend. If it's a nodule in the periphery of the lung, somewhere like you're on this side of the lung, the doctor will just operate, remove it, and that's it. But if it's somewhere in the middle near the heart, it will encase the heart, encase the blood vessels. So it's difficult to say. You can't calculate the mortality like that of individual cancer. The subtype matters too. Like for example, on microscopy, a lung cancer can be a neuroendocrine type. That is pretty safe. But if it's something like a adenocarcinoma, that is more dangerous. So it really depends on that. It depends on the microscopy report and the radiology report, how it's spread. But early stage, they're all curable.
So
I have a question, Dada. Can I ask? May I ask?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my question really is again about chemotherapy because that is a very painful treatment for cancer, and most people really, get scared of chemotherapy and of its side effects. For 2 3 weeks after chemotherapy, the body is adjusting. Do you see that in the near future, chemotherapy will be phased out and something new will come in? You're saying radiotherapy is something new.
No,
But
I am targeted therapy. Targeted therapy involves giving agents which hit only the cancer and not the rest of the body. Chemotherapy involves poisoning the whole body, assuming the cancer will take more of the poison. And
correct.
that,
So this
yeah,
new
it's more.
therapy that you're, this new
This is
therapy,
called targeted therapy. Targeted therapy.
I don't hear of it so much. I still see friends and family who are undergoing chemotherapy, losing their hair, having nausea, vomiting, and things like that.
Targeted therapy requires a very high degree of expertise. I deal with targeted therapy. It requires an extremely high degree of expertise, and if you make a mistake there, that cancer will grow like anything because you have hit the wrong target. So usually doctors use it in combination to maybe reduce the dose of chemo. The second thing is that there are a lot of substances and medicines now available which reduce the side effects of chemo, so the patient can tolerate chemo and can be fine.
Okay.
But
Right.
sometimes it's better to have more aggressive chemo and go for a complete cure and then then start rejuvenating one's body, which one can
Yeah,
do that.
certainly. I was just thinking, my question is that for 40, 50 years, we've had chemotherapy as a main line of treatment for cancer. Do you see that in the next maybe 15, 20 years, chemotherapy will be replaced by some new therapy which doesn't
It
cause
may
all
be
this?
obsolete. It may be obsolete. In 20 years, it may be completely obsolete.
And what is it? What is the? Would it be a pill that you take in, or would it be some kind of target?
Yeah, so for this blood cancer which we discussed, it's a pill.
It's a pill.
It
Pill.
replaced chemo for that cancer. It is a simple pill which won him a Nobel Prize. He got a lot of threats from pharma companies when he made the pill,
Really?
but they lost. Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
God.
imagine mesylate it's called. So yeah, so basically, yeah, most of them will be replaced by a pill. I'm quite certain. Some may require injections, and some cancers may require some mild dose of chemo. But yes, it will reduce and it will be phased out. Definitely, most certainly.
That's
That's
We are
good.
interesting.
now developing a lot of antibodies which are attacking the cancer specifically. We identify the areas of the cancer and which are mutated, and we design antibodies just to attack that. Like for example, in thyroid cancer, thyroid iodine is very important for the thyroid. So we take radioactive iodine, and that goes and that sticks to the thyroid and kills the thyroid cancer. So like such kind of treatments are available now, but FDA has to approve them. It has to show that it has a definite curative benefit. Just giving it and shrinking the tumor and the tumor coming back, then there's no point.
Right.
So that will take some time, and they may have a hybrid approach initially, and then go for the different
So
thing.
how soon you think those new inventions like laser? Is there anything like a laser cure? Like they can go straight to the particular organ and kill that tumor by laser treatment?
Yeah, they call it confocal radiation. Yeah, they do that. They have that available now. In fact, it's more expensive than even some surgeries. They have that, but the tumor should be radio sensitive. Some tumors don't die with radiation.
Some tumors don't die so easily, is it?
No, they don't die with radiation. Some tumors are not radio sensitive. If it's a radio sensitive tumor, it will die.
Have you heard of hypnotherapy?
Hmm?
Does hypnotherapy have any part to play in this
I'll have to
survival
read.
of?
I'll have to read about it.
But there is no sort of test made or any testimony on that, right?
See, I believe the human body has a remarkable ability to heal itself. And we have been taught that sometimes these diseases will kill you, will harm you, and all of that. But our body doesn't necessarily do that. And I believe we have mechanisms in place in which we can cure ourselves as well. How to access them is not been taught. And that is a journey which I don't think science is going to take us along. But that is a journey someone should and we should embark upon.
That's very significant that you are saying this, being a doctor, that there are alternative therapies that one should do, which conventional medicine will not talk about. Coming from a doctor, it's very unusual and very interesting because a lot of people do try out alternative therapies. I'm not sure how successful they are, but
The problem with alternative therapies is that we in India they're classified into Ayurveda and homeopathy, and those doctors are not very well trained in dealing with cancers because they don't have it in their syllabus. What I'm talking about is the ability for the body to completely heal from within, which is something which should be taught.
and
Hmm?
how is that done? It's by affirming, like you just
So this would be something which would not be in the realm of what we're discussing today. Self affirmations and positive energy, as we know, play a very important role. And exactly how to channelize that, take it to the next level, That is something we have to work on together. That I don't have the answer to, but I believe that there is an answer there for that, because we have survived, we have evolved from whatever we've evolved from, and history has been dated only since a certain, most of history has been lost, but human beings have survived cancers, plagues. So how have we survived so many diseases, so many cancers, lived in the jungles, starved? That means we have abilities which we don't yet know, or we have forgotten, and we need to relearn them.
But is this
There was
cancer
a
a
man
new
who
thing? Or
survived nuclear attacks in both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He did not get cancer.
Yeah, he was going to get late for work, I
So
think.
the
He was
same
anxious.
person, he was in the nuclear attack.
Sorry, I didn't catch that, Dr.
And he
Shilpa.
still didn't get.
There was one man who
There was a
went to
person
Hiroshima and
who was
Nagasaki
there
both.
during Hiroshima attack, Nagasaki attack. He was there during both the nuclear attack, but he still cancer. So luck also sometimes is important.
Of course. So he has cancer and survived, or he never got cancer?
Didn't get cancer.
Or he didn't get. It's a
No,
rare.
no, no. Nuclear attacks can cause cancers, and he was there during both the nuclear attack,
He should
but
have gotten,
still
for all
didn't
practical
get
purposes, he should
any.
have had cancer.
so
Right.
my question now is, how old is this cancer? I mean, is it this century? You found out in this century, or it had existed many thousands or hundreds of years before?
So I do veterinary oncology too. So animals get cancers too. So basically, before humans, there were animals. They had cancer too. So cancer precedes all of us.
I didn't quite follow. Is it an old thing or recently?
Dinosaurs had it too. It is ancient. It is before us. It's older than us.
So it's an ancient disease
Older
which
than
is
all of us.
manifested more. What are the reasons it has manifested so aggressively in this century?
Very bad.
Suddenly, everybody is talking about cancer. Why is it spreading so fast?
Because initially infectious diseases used to kill, like the Spanish plague. It killed a huge chunk of the world's population, like the Black Death, all of those things. Spanish flu, sorry, then the Black Death, and all of these things. Now these diseases are curable. Like if you have some infection, you can take antibiotics for it, everything. So now, because most of the diseases have become curable, diseases like cancer have just been are now popping up. Previously people died before cancer. They died before they could get cancer. They died of tuberculosis in India, or they died of polio, they died of tetanus, diphtheria. Now we have vaccines for so many of these things, and we have cures for tuberculosis. So it's just manifesting more, but at the same time, the pollution level, the bad lifestyle, obesity, lack of exercise activity, all of these factors are playing a role together. But they were always there. We are noticing them more too, and they are increasing in incidence as well. Both of them, yeah.
In the olden days, you can say that cancer cells were in remission, and the other cells for tuberculosis and other disease were more active because
Yeah,
now they can be
more
treated. So now cancer cells have gotten up from their sleep.
yeah, exactly. And people are living longer, and cancer generally, if you notice broadly, I'm not talking about pediatric cancer, it's a different story, but it broadly occurs at an older age group. So now people are living more too, longer too. So that also
Yeah.
plays. So it's just a statistical phenomenon.
So can we test our genes to prevent cancer?
Yeah, of course we can.
So can you talk about it?
Yeah, that will have to be talked about in a little bit of detail though. We can have a session for it where we can talk about prevention and testing
Can
for
you
it.
give us some indication to the viewers today that
Yeah, basically, BRCA gene mutation is very common in India, BRCA1. So that is a very common mutation in the Indian population, causing breast cancer. And a woman should undergo BRCA screening if some criteria are met. Those can be discussed with me or her doctor. And if she has a family history, or there's someone with ovarian cancer or breast plus ovarian cancer or cancer before a certain age, then we suspect they may have a mutation in that. So we recommend screening for that. So for depending on the cancer type, basically we have to talk to the patient, and then depending on what we suspect, we advise something, and sometimes we don't advise anything. You're fine.
so what kind of tests can you recommend?
The first thing is getting a screening, a regular screening like mammogram and all of that for breast cancer.
No, I'm
for
talking about genes. I'm
genes.
talking
Is
about genes.
Yeah, so genes, there are different technologies available, like next generation sequencing and all of that. So all of there are thousands of tests actually which we have even in our menu. So those, if you like, I can send some literature across or something. So it
So, are
really
you
depends.
in your institution? Are you conducting these uh, genes testing? Are you
Yeah, we
doing
do all
gene
the
testing?
tests. Yes, yes, we do it on a global scale. We do all the tests, all of these tests,
So
each
then,
category.
after what kind of results are you? Then what kind of medication do you do? Is there any uh, formula that after you?
Absolutely.
Can you talk about a
Absolutely.
little bit about
Uh,
these?
this would be too much in depth because every story is different. Normally, if a person doesn't have a family history, doesn't have any other risk factors, we don't normally go and sequence their genome because you will find a lot of things over there which are not going to happen, and but statistically it will show you have a 3% chance of this, you have a 5% chance of this, so you'll always live in fear. That is one problem. The second thing is, but if we have a strong suspicion this person may have this kind of cancer, then we recommend specific panels, like something called a mismatch repair panel for the intestine cancer or the endometrium cancer. And if that comes positive, then we give treatments for that, or we monitor the woman or the male over a span of time. Like if it's an intestine cancer, we do a scopy, whatever it may be, and then we decide whether we find a mass, we remove it. It doesn't occur suddenly, it will take a year, months to years to occur, so we follow up accordingly. So every case is individualized basically.
So what can we deduct from today's talk? What are the takeaways that you would like to summarize and give to our viewers?
The first thing is one should not be scared of cancer. So therefore one shouldn't be scared of discussing a cancer and cancer screening. Some people don't get screened for cancer. They don't do pap smear. Pap smears, they don't, even if they have a lump, they tend to ignore it. And they're afraid that if it's cancer, I get diagnosed, I'm dead. That's not true. That's the first thing. So don't be afraid of it. Okay, you can have dominion over it. Second thing is, if you have a family history, you have to visit a doctor and ask them if there are different options. What options do you have basically? The third thing is, if you actually end up getting something, sadly cancer, know that it is completely curable. Most of them are completely curable. And eventually, moral of the story is exercise, eat healthy food, develop yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and be happy and healthy always. And that works a lot.
You mentioned something about meditation.
Yeah.
How did you bring in meditation into this cure?
No, those are
Uh,
my personal beliefs. Those are my personal beliefs. Science has varied views on it, but it has shown that it definitely helps in every way. But it may help directly in a certain way. It may affect your metabolism in a certain way. But I can't cite any scientific articles on this. So this is just my beliefs. But I have seen that some people can tolerate chemotherapy better as well. When they are meditating, when they do their breathing exercises, they do yoga, they can tolerate chemo better as well. Sometimes they can even take slightly higher doses, which may completely kill the cancer, which they would not have been able to tolerate had they not done that. So every case is different, but it works. It's harmless and it makes you feel great. So why not do it?
and what advice would you give men over 70 or 80 to correct themselves or be in a state of sort of alertness? What kind of tests they should do?
To be in a state of, I didn't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Alertness or readiness. You
Alertness.
were mentioning that there's a possibility that after 80 people can get cancer, right?
Yeah, of course.
Prostate
Yeah.
cancer. So you would recommend that people approaching 80 should have a prostate test
Absolutely. Before that, much before that, 20 years before that.
at the age of 60.
Yeah, prostate cancer is very common in males. Some cancers you have to just screen for, and you can do a blood test of PSA, and you can do a digital rectal examination, which is part of a general body checkup. We do that as well. And for women, basically, someone can guide them for routine examination. Now, we don't recommend getting X-rays done or CT scans done unnecessarily because you are exposing yourself to radiation and causing cancer, actually. But you can do a mammogram and you can do regular self-examinations. Pap smears can be done. So
Are you aware of any diagnosis which is done just by the breath? Because I was sitting with one of my friends, and he says that there is a doctor in his organization that once you can detect cancer by the breath.
No,
Are you aware of this? Not yet.
that's not possible. No, that's not possible.
Okay, so we'll have to work on that. Okay,
It
so
get
that's
detected
it.
in your blood. It get detected in your blood, though. We call it liquid biopsy. So even if it's a solid tumor somewhere, without touching the tumor, we can still detect it elsewhere in your blood. So that's called liquid biopsy. But breath, not yet. When it does happen, I'll let you know.
This is what I've heard recently only,
No,
and
not yet.
I thought maybe you are aware of it.
No, maybe metabolic alterations can be detected in the breath, but not that much that you can label it as malignancy. Even if you
So,
exercise,
how would you like to continue this series? What would you like to talk about in the next subsequent, when we invite you next? What would you recommend to share with our viewers?
whatever the viewers want, basically, because I feel that the people who are non-medicos, they have a different need as compared to medicos. For example, when I talk with specialists or when I talk with oncologists, they have very specific questions, whereas people who are non-medicos, they have concerns which are related to their life, or they want a moral of the story or something like that. So whatever, now this was the first episode we have, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope that we can have more based on your feedback and the feedback of the viewers. For myself, I have no
I hope they have understood everything what you have said and explained, and we'll get the feedback very soon, and I'll come back to you on that. So, with that,
definitely.
I would like to thank you
Thank
for
you.
your presence and also thank Dr. Shilpa for her kind appearance. And I'll request Urvashi to end the show with a little mantra and a
Sure.
prayer. Thank you
Samriddhi.
so much, Doctor. God bless you. Dr. Shilpa, thank you very much. Urvashi, please go ahead
Yes.
and let us end the show.
Yes. Om
Thank you so
Asato
much.
Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.
Thank you, Urvashi.
Thank
It
you.
was so
Thank
lovely. It was so meditative. I think all cancer cells will run away or go to sleep.
I wish it was that easy, really.
I think we should. I was reading something on Dr. Shivananda, and he said that if you chant Om 50 times before you go to sleep, all your problems can be resolved. And perhaps even cancer cells can go into remission just by the vibration of Om, because Om is the primal sound of this world, and it's a
Yes,
monosyllable and the most powerful suffix mantra in the whole cosmos. So I would
absolutely.
recommend people to chant Om regularly to see it can enhance and empower them to combat uh, cancer and other diseases also.
Yes,
Try
I'm
it,
sure it will help. I'm sure it will.
including
Absolutely.
nose and core problems. Okay, doctor, we'll see you again soon, and perhaps we can curate another session. And after the show, we can do that and see how we can entertain our and enlighten our viewers properly in future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
shall leave now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.